Welcome to the Sunday Painter. Imagine a channel that inspires you to draw and paint, to become a better artist, even making money with your art, with a little history of the masters thrown in. Also, don't forget the hand-picked videos from YouTube, from seasoned artists, will save you time and money. This would be the channel for you, cost nothing, but inspiration, so subscribe, hit that like button, don't forget the little bell so you can be inspired at least once a week. If you love John Singer Sargent, you are going to love this artist too. Joaquín Sorolla y Bastida. Someone told me once of a story about Sorolla. He said that he had a student out on a beach painting one morning. The student watched Sorolla paint. He painted for quickly and beautifully, capturing the emotions as it seemed in one breath, that the student packed his stuff up and never painted again. Don't know how true this is, but let me know in the comments. Would love to hear it. Stay around to the end, and hear my thoughts on how you may use this newfound information in your work. Do you have many art tees to show you're an artist? Well, I've created an art tee to inspire your art. Imagine wearing this Sorolla art tee while having fun with your friends, who know you're an artist. Great conversation starter while looking awesome. So how can you get your inspiration tee? Check the link below the video and let your imagination run wild.
The Sunday Painter.
I find Sorolla's work lively and free of outlines. I have never seen a Sorolla painting in person, but lucky for us of the internet. He does have a museum. It preserves the original atmosphere of both home and study from 1863 to 1923. It houses the richest collection of his works, colorful paintings irradiating light and vitality. It is one of the more complete and best preserved artist homes remaining in Europe. I'll put the link in the description below. He painted mostly outdoors, under sunlight and exposed to the elements. He did this even for many of his portraits, which are typically painted in the comforts of a studio. He said, "As far as outdoor work is concerned, a studio is only a garage, a place in which to store pictures and repair them, never a place in which to paint them." Joaquín Sorolla was born on February 27, 1863 in Valencia, Spain. Sorolla was the oldest child born to a tradesman, also named Joaquín Sorolla, and his wife, Concepción Bastida. In August 1865, both he and his sister were orphaned when their parents passed away, possibly from cholera. After the death of their parents, they were cared for by their aunt and uncle. At the age of 18, Sorolla traveled to Madrid. He vehemently studied master paintings in the Museo del Prado. After completing his military service, at 22 Sorolla acquired a grant which enabled a 4-year term to study painting in Rome, Italy. While he was there, he was welcomed and found stability in the example of F. Pradilla, the director of the Spanish Academy in Rome. A long visit to Paris in 1885 provided his first experience to modern painting. Before becoming a renowned painter, Sorolla discovered many influences from several cities. During the early 1880s, Sorolla made frequent visits to Madrid, specifically the Prado Museum, where he copied artworks from distinguished artists such as Velázquez and El Greco. After a successful exhibition in Madrid in 1884, Sorolla won a scholarship to study in Rome. There, he was able to study while being surrounded by many Italian as well as other Spanish artists. While studying in Italy, Sorolla made a trip to Paris where he was influenced by realist paintings. After completing his studies in Italy, Sorolla decided to establish a life in Madrid in 1900 when he began to concentrate on representing daily life through paintings featuring beach scenes full of light. Light represented through many shades of white and blue became a signature characteristic in many well-known Sorolla paintings. Early in his life, Sorolla was seen as a realist radical, an innovator in plein air techniques who dared to paint ordinary people. Late in his life he was seen as a realist reactionary, stubbornly clinging to an outmoded style in the time of Cubism, Expressionism, and the triumph of modernism. Sawyer has sometimes been labeled an impressionist, but that is not quite right. As the critic Henri Rochefort recognized on viewing Sawyer's Paris show in 1906, this is not impressionism, but it is incredibly impressive. Sawyer's style is probably more accurately described as luminism, literally, the painting of light, or even, overcoming all collective categories, simply and uniquely Sorolism. He painted in the open air, often quite rapidly, as may have been necessary for an artist who created over 500 paintings in one 4-year period. Some of his paintings appear almost unfinished, and he was not averse to leaving less essential areas of the canvas in a rough state. Yet he could capture the finest details, and no painter before or since has been able to create such blinding fields and flashes of light. His style was unique, with influences from the old masters, and his impressionist contemporaries. He had this to say about Diego Velázquez in particular. If ever a painter wrought a miracle of illusion with brush and pigment, that painter was Velázquez in his Las Meninas, at the Prado in Madrid. Now, I have studied this picture with a lens, and what do I find? Why, that Velázquez got that marvelous atmospheric background by one broad sweep of his flowing brush, charged with thin color, so thin that you can feel the very texture of the canvas through it. Nature, the sun itself, produces color effects on this same principle, but instantaneously. The impression of these evanescent visions is what we make desperate attempts to catch and fix by any means at hand. At such moments I am unconscious of materials, of style, of rules, of everything that intervenes between my perception and the object or idea perceived. No, Impressionism is not charlatanry, nor a formula, nor a school. I should say rather it is the bold resolve to throw all those things overboard. In addition to his work as a painter of scenes of ordinary people at work and at play, Sawyer was much in demand as a portraitist. In this regard he was influenced by John Singer Sargent, whose excellent naturalism Sawyer much admired. Sawyer painted many gorgeous and touching portraits of his wife and daughters, as well as portraits of famous persons such as United States President William Howard Taft, Louis Comfort Tiffany, of Tiffany lamps fame, and King Alfonso XIII of Spain. Sawyer's primary U.S. patron, Archer Milton Huntington, set up his own set of rules that, as in Spain, led to restrictions on access to the artist's work. In 1911, Huntington commissioned A Vision of Spain, a monumental mural cycle, for the library of his newly founded Hispanic Society of America in northern Manhattan. It is difficult to assess the extent of Sawyer's lasting impact. On the one hand, his work has been almost studiously ignored by 20th-century critics. Yet his work has continued to influence and fascinate a small number of painters, and the legacy of his paintings is starting to become better known. Perhaps he will yet receive the recognition he so richly deserves, when modernism is merely a bad memory and Sawyer's natural painting is understood as a unique way of capturing the light and color of joyous nature. The question, you as an artist have been waiting for: how did Sawyer paint? Sawyer said, "I could not paint at all if I had to paint slowly. Every effect is so transient, it must be rapidly painted." Sawyer painted fast, usually outside and fashionably dressed. His flawless technique allowed him this privilege. Painting fast at the sacrifice of control is a recipe for disaster. It is also worth noting that Sawyer went to great lengths to make it look dashed off and easy, as James Gurney put it. There are numerous photos of Sawyer painting under the glaring sun with temporary walls, umbrellas, a giant easel, ropes and supports to brace the canvas, assistants, you name it. Anything but spontaneous. He attacked most paintings without a detailed plan. This may be why his compositions appear so natural and inviting. And said, "Go to nature with no parti pris. You should not know what your picture is to look like until it is done. Just see the picture that is coming." He worked alla prima, wet on wet, with large brushes to match the large canvas sizes. But painting in this way was not without logistical challenges, saying, "The great difficulty with large canvases is that they should by right be painted as fast as a sketch. By speed only can you gain an appearance of fleeting effect. But to paint a 3-yard canvas with the same dispatch as one of 10 inches is well nigh impossible." Sawyer was particularly fascinated with the play of sunlight on cloth, clothing, towels, sheets or sails, as well as scenes of young children playing in the sunlight on the beach. He was prolific, painted rapidly and often felt free to leave areas of his canvas unfinished or rendered with a few quick strokes of color. Sawyer used a bright palette, perhaps inspired by the Impressionists. At the very least, we know he was inspired by their use of violet. For his outdoor paintings, his palette included cobalt violet, rose madder, all cadmium reds, cadmium orange, all cadmium yellows, yellow ochre, chrome green, viridian, Prussian blue, cobalt blue, French ultramarine, and lead white. His portrait palette extended to include black and earth tones. For studio portraits, he changed his palette entirely to one that included black, burnt umber, raw umber, rose madder, burnt sienna, raw sienna, yellow ochre, Naples yellow, vermilion and cobalt blue. Occasionally Sawyer would add orange, pink or purple. But he usually emphasized strong tonal contrasts over ambitious color effects. In the studio Sawyer would sometimes use a palette the size of a grand piano lid, and 3-foot-long brushes to allow him to stand back from his painting. How did he feel about color? Sawyer saying this, "I hate darkness." Claude Monet once said that painting in general did not have light enough in it. I agree with him. We painters, however, can never reproduce sunlight as it really is. I can only approach the truth of it. Drawing was the foundation of Sawyer's skill set. It allowed him to paint so fast and fluently, whilst maintaining control. Saying, "The older I become, the more I realize that drawing is the most important of all the problems of picture making." He was not a slave to technique. Truth and sincerity were his key objectives, and these came from observation and hard work. Sawyer painted very, very fast. "I could not paint at all if I had to paint slowly," he once said. "Every effect is so transient, it must be rapidly painted." Most of his pictures were painted in from 4 to 6 in the morning, many in 1 or 2. Sawyer did not have a set idea of how a painting would turn out before he started, preferring to build up the composition as he went along. Saying, "The great difficulty with large canvases is that they should by right be painted as fast as a sketch. By speed only can you gain an appearance of fleeting effect. But to paint a 3-yard canvas with the same dispatch as one of 10 inches is well nigh impossible. When an artist begins to count strokes instead of regarding nature, he is lost." This preoccupation with technique, at the expense of truth and sincerity, is the principal fault I find in much of the work of modern painters. Sawyer was extremely aware of photography and of the possibilities it opened up for him. He felt he could achieve in color some of the casual aspects that photography had introduced into visual experience. We see the influence of photography in the way Sawyer crops compositions and introduces exaggerated angles. In his garden pictures, he paints famous monuments but often chooses oblique, strange, and unexpected angles. Sawyer also uses water and reflection a great deal. Buildings and their reflections merge in pools and fountains, intriguing mirror images trick our eyes. At the beach, he sometimes painted from a platform built out into the waves, a vantage point from which to view the play of light on the sea and the wet bodies of his subjects. In Sawyer's plein air work you often find he exaggerated this warm/cool division to achieve a dramatic effect. He pushed the local colors in his lights more towards the yellow than they actually were. You also find he pushed the local colors in his shadows towards the blue or violet more than they were. This temperature exaggeration, coupled with the high contrast between his light and shadow masses, is largely responsible for his ability to create a sense of intense light on his canvas. The temperature division also creates an optical color vibration within our eyes. Here are my thoughts as a teacher. Draw more than you paint. As you heard from Sawyer, drawing is the key to great paintings. Don't be afraid of a brush that is too large for what you are trying to accomplish. This will slow you down and make you think about your brushwork. The next thing is, don't skimp on the paint. Load your brush or palette knife with paint the consistency of warm butter. If you see a painting that is flat and lifeless, one of the causes could be just not enough paint. Also, lose the line. Use color or gradation of tone to separate your characters on your canvas. Blend and loose some edges. This will create interest while creating a seamless work. Also, what we learned from Sawyer is, use bright pure color without blending to round out a subject, not putting in every detail, just what makes sense as the painting comes together. Look for the big idea first. Copy a few of his works on a smaller scale, to get a feel for his color and technique. They can be small simple sketches, not full complete works. In 1920 he suffered several strokes which paralyzed him down the left side. Eventually he died in Cercidilla in 1923. As with all things, there is much more to Sawyer, and hope this piques your curiosity and inspires you to get out your brushes and make the world a better place. Go have fun painting, remembering, it's not the destination but the journey. Tell me in the comments if you do. Don't forget the de-stressed inspirational tea in the link below with other Sawyer links. Thanks so much for watching.